And we begin with news just coming through. These are visuals from the MEA, ladies and gentlemen, because the Canadian High Commissioner Cameron McKay, after being summoned, has just arrived at the MEA's office. He's been summoned because of the statements and the utterances of the Canadian government, and Bharat not taking kindly to it at all. These are visuals first here on CNN News 18, here on the right stand. Akash is joining us live with the details. Yes, Akash.
So Anand, first of all, a bit clarity. He was the CDA, Canadian CDA, Stuart Wheeler, who was here after the summons by the Ministry of External Affairs. We know the
so the charge d'affaires is there because the Canadian High Commissioner is out of India. Okay, correction there. All right, go ahead, Akash.
Right, Anand. So I was talking about the kind of developments we have, seen that how, starting from Canada, how they said that the top, diplomat of India in Canada is the person of interest in the Hijab case, and after which India has, somewhere registered a strong protest. And this is the reason why we are seeing these sort of developments, in fact, where we have seen that CDA has just arrived, in fact, at around 6:52, he has gone inside. And he was summoned, and this is the official way of registering your protest. And experts are saying that this is a diplomatic breakdown because it has never been seen before. Also, we know the kind of developments as far as Nijja case is concerned. India has time and again mentioned that Canada is not providing any sort of evidence, even after the fact that they have said it several times that India had somewhere a role to play in the whole case. But in some time from now, in fact, we are expecting that CDA would be coming out because this was the summons. Since High Commissioner is not there in the country, that's why CDA was, in fact, given this sort of summon, and he has just arrived just 5 minutes back on it.
Right. Akash, do we know how long is this meeting going to be, and is there just going to be a statement? Because Bharat's statement was very, very strong. Randeep Jaiswal and the MEA were not unsparing in their words, in the way they have reprimanded the Canadian authorities and the Canadian government for the utterances and the way and the charge. Because they've said not a shred of evidence has been provided. How can you name someone, and how can you do something like this?
In fact, Anand, the duration is going to play an important role. I'll let you know as to for how much time he was inside. Yes, so 6:52, he went inside at 7-8 minutes, inside the MEA, and we still don't know as to, after how much time he'll be coming out. But definitely we are here, and we are keeping a close eye as to how things are, panning out from here on.
Right, Akash, thank you for that update. We'll come back to the story. Later on this edition of The Right Stand, we should have the former Foreign Secretary and also someone who was in charge of the G20 affairs here when Bharat hosted the G20, Harsh Shingla ji, to join us and give us an assessment of what this implies. But for the moment, we'll move on here, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the other big story, the political story developing or brewing in Karnataka. What's happening in that state, and what is the government trying to do? The Siddaramaiah-led government in Karnataka is facing opposition's ire for withdrawing cases against the infamous 2022 Hubballi Riots. In its defense, the Congress has claimed that the case itself is false. So they've just decided for themselves. But it doesn't stop there. The Congress government has withdrawn cases against AIMIM leaders for pro-Hijab protests during the COVID-19 third wave, when there were protocols and publicly that you're not supposed to have these gatherings. AIMIM leader Zahiruddin Ansari and others had been booked for organizing a Hijab is our right kind of procession in Kalaburagi district. While the cabinet dropped charges against AIMIM leaders in the Hijab row, it denied withdrawing charges against Hindu students who were in favor of doing away with the hijab and said no hijab in school campuses and school protocol uniform should be followed. Now, this is despite the subcommittee recommendations. The government's alleged selective approach has sparked massive controversy. The opposition claims that the government on the one hand is overruling its state law and police department. On the other hand, it is overlooking the recommendations made by the subcommittee, which said on both ends, drop the cases. Now, Congress MLC B.K. Hariprasad says that the government should withdraw cases against those accused under the DJ Halli and KG Halli riots case, whom he calls innocents, ladies and gentlemen. Pradeep Bhandari, national spokesperson of the BJP with us, Sanket Yanagi, advocate with us, Anand Ranganathan, doctor, political commentator, author with us. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. So, how do you explain this, Sanket Yanagi ji? In your own wisdom, the subcommittee's one set of recommendations is set aside. The other set of recommendations is upheld. And B.K. Hariprasad has decided all these people are innocents with D.G. Halli and K.G. Halli.
The innocence and or otherwise of a person who has been charged with the commission of an offence cannot be decided before the trial. Once there is a charge sheet shows there are certain material evidences which has to undergo the trial. In the absence of the trial, the court can consider it under exercise of its power under section 482 by the High Court or by the Supreme Court in further consideration of that matter. But the government to come to the conclusion at this stage, in my opinion, is a premature statement or premature decision. There are certain decisions which may have a larger social impact. Law is to discipline the society. If something is happening in the society which is affecting the law and order, and which is again affecting the order of the state, then the state has to be more stringent, irrespective of the community, irrespective of the political affiliation, irrespective of any other factors as such. But in a case where there may be certain recommendations even to withdraw, there may not be even to withdraw. But the state, in a welfare state more so, the government has to be more cautious and more responsible. For a moment, I would say that the government has taken a hasty decision which was not required to. Some people or some political parties may call it as a hasty decision, but some call it as irresponsible, some call it as a decision which was warranted to pursue or to in the wake of elections so far and so on. But my opinion is, as a common man, as a person who has learned law, who has learned to respect law, I expect that a law has been made to be respected, and the state should not dwell itself into a situation where the breaking of law should be made as an order of the day. And I personally speaking, I do not agree with what the decision has been taken. Again, it is to be tested by the court of law. But I'm an independent person, not being the part of any political party, but I regret that no wisdom or wise decisions or wise application of mind has been applied in this case. But
so what has been applied? Let me ask you that. Since you're being very candid today, let me ask you, Sanket Yenagi, that what do you think has happened today? Is this not brazenly communalizing an issue? I will not even call it appeasement. It is nothing but open communal politics. Would you not say? Hindus ke khilaf the cases remain. Muslims, cases against Muslim leaders is being dropped. Is this not communal politics?
Honestly speaking, I do not have the privilege of being a cabinet party to the cabinet meeting, and I will not have any say of that. What weighed the most is something to be worried about, especially keeping aside the public interest or the morale of the public or the morale of the police or the investigating agency who are also the victims. So that, in my opinion, ought to have been considered by the government. Government is not just to look at one side, and government is to be, when we talk about Raj Dharma is something different than what is being practiced unfortunately here. Raj Dharma means treat everyone equally, listen to everyone, and the one who is a victim, you should be more considerate and you should listen to them more, and they must get justice. And here in a case, this is a different scenario altogether. Even the police are the victims, if I am correct.
Yes.
If that is the case, it will certainly affect the morale of the investigating agency or the agency which maintains the law and order in the state, and they are being taken for ride. That's not expected at all from a society or from a government which talks about the rule of law. And I would say that this is something going to be a costly affair in a state of this nature at this country.
You're getting an applause from Dr. Ranganathan. Why Dr. Ranganathan? Did Mr. Sanket Yenagi surprise you with his position today?
Good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists. No, I think the applause was not because Mr. Sanket has said something that is in variance to his earlier views. I think it was just basically something that he, as a lawyer and an officer of the court, said something that is expected of an officer of the court. Anand, if you could kindly get the echo corrected.
Yeah.
There's some echo coming. Thank you so much. No, couple of points out here. Notwithstanding the fact that I would only be adding to what Sanket ji has said because I agree with him entirely. The fact of the matter is, where does the Indian state go from here, Anand? That is the more deeper issue that we must reflect on. I think we must stop commenting on anecdotal or incidents that happen from day to day. We must understand why this is happening, because this is happening with alarming regularity. This has been normalized by the state, and it might come as a surprise to my dear friend and brother Pradeep. It's been also indulged in by parties cutting across ideologies and party lines. BJP indulges in appeasement almost as much as other parties do. This is a disease, and I'll tell you what are the three stages. The first is selective welfare or welfare, then it progresses to wokefare, and finally it ends with warfare. So when you have welfare, you selectively decide that Muslims are worse off than other communities, like the Prime Minister said erstwhile that Muslims have the first right to resources. Then you have blanket reservations, 4% reservations taken out of the OBC quota for Muslims, even though they might be billionaires, but they still get reservations. You have Hajj subsidies, you have scholarships selectively, Shadi Shagun schemes, you have 50% reservation, UGC funding them, so many other things. You have interest-free loans for shops to be set up on Waqf land. That's all taken care of under the garb of welfare. It progresses very smoothly to wokefare, where you don't touch the Muslims, but you touch the minds of the Hindus. You poison them through self-loathing. They start hating Hinduism and Hindu culture. So you have things like Places of Worship Act, where Hindus can't even approach the court to reclaim their temples. You have the Waqf Act. You have so many other things that are anti-Hindu in the garb of appeasing the Muslims. You have roads and cities being named after Aurangzeb, barbarians. You have celebrating Tipu Jayanti, a mass murderer. And finally, you let off terrorists and rioters. That is what indulges in warfare, and that is what we are seeing right now. The appeasement has reached a level where the state is not even thinking. Just remember, the Supreme Court recently denied bail to 58 Coimbatore bombers, and they said we're denying them bail, and the DMK government let them off. And the pretext that they used, remember Anand, you ran a show on this, was that we are kind to Muslims. I'm paraphrasing them, but this is what their thing is. If you let off Muslim terrorists, you're actually being kind to Muslims, you're working for the Muslims. It has reached to that level, and I'm afraid this is just a reflection of that. Jinnah must be laughing, because this is what Jinnah said. If I do not get a divided India, I will have a destroyed India. He got the former. We are fulfilling his dream for the latter, Anand.
And Pradeep Bhandari, as you want to react to it, I'll tell you, there is a place called Nalanda where the university has been redone. But the station still is Bakhtiarpur, named after the person who destroyed it. And it's done under successive governments. So why is the BJP trying to say communal politics and all of that? You've not tried to correct anything anywhere. And the other thing is that the Congress party is openly, brazenly standing there and saying we bat only for one side. What's the BJP going to do about it?
Well, Anandji, on the station's naming, it will be definitely changed, and thank you so much. And you would definitely
10 साल में तो नहीं बदला, अब कितने साल में बदले देखते हैं। 10 साल में तो नहीं बदला, 10 साल में तो नहीं बदला।
पार्टी से किसी को उम्मीद है और हम करके रहेंगे, आप निश्चिंत रहिए। But there's a larger point. I know Anand can disagree with me on the part of it, but it is a crime to be a Hindu whenever the Congress party is in power. That is the only truth which is there. Now please understand, it was a crime to be a Dhanush and a Maruti in Congress ruled Karnataka, but it was okay to be a Zahiruddin. The Congress party has made it clear that even in the case of Hubballi riots, the Congress party removed the cases against the rioters, not because they were the AIMIM backers. They are not there because they were belonging to AIMIM, because they were belonging to one particular community. And is it for the first time the Congress party has done? No, absolutely not. What did the Congress party's Home Minister G. Parmeshwar said in Rameshwar Blast case? That it is not a big blast, it's a business rivalry. Why? Because he was fearing that the accused might be from his particular vote bank. What did the Congress party do at the birthplace of Lord Hanuman at the Anjani Hills? It removed the lamppost having Lord Hanuman's preachings on it. What did the Congress party do in the case of Ganesh Puja? You know, 36 departments need to approve Ganesh Puja if you want to do Ganesh Puja in Karnataka. That's the Congress party. It snatched the rights of the OBCs and gave it to the Muslims in Karnataka. This is why we are calling the Congress party is the modern Muslim League. Now, this is not for the first time, and I'll tell you why it is a part of a strategy. If you remember, the Congress party spokesperson, Dr. Shama Mohammed, tweeted something on August 9, 2024, and then she suddenly deleted it. And it said that at the end of the day, it is the only one community which stands with the Congress party and supports the Congress party. It's the Muslim community. So, which means that in order to appease its vote bank, the Congress party could back the terrorists. That is why Sonia Gandhi batted for the Batla House. In order to appease its community, the Congress party takes back the cases against the rioters in Hubballi. In order to appease its community, the Congress party does not stand with the students in Karnataka, but stands with the AIMIM supporters in it, because the genesis of it is what Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar said, and I'll end with that. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar on 27th October 1951 said in a speech in Jalandhar, and I quote Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar when he was speaking on Jawaharlal Nehru's attitude, he said, "Nehru has developed a fascination for Muslim votes and has become harsh towards Dalit. Nehru has believed and has turned into," this is the Babasaheb Ambedkar's word, "Muslim maniac and Muslim obsession." So the entire vote back genesis is the Congress party. This is what we are fighting on. We are fighting against this selective secularism. You can criticize us on certain welfareism, but what you cannot criticize us is that we will always stand with Sanatan Dharma and will always uphold the Constitution of India.
Good to have the Sanatan Dharma and Constitution plugged there, but Mr. Pradeep Bhandari, you again said OBCs versus Muslims. So you again broke the Hindu community under caste.
No, we did not.
No, just now in your argument.
No, I just mentioned the fact.
In just against OBCs you said OBCs are not Hindus.
No.
No. In your own lexicon you break down the Hindu community.
I did not.
But you didn't say which of the Shia, which of the Hindus, Muslim sect was the one that they were batting for. So Muslims are again grouped and spoken as one, while Hindus are broken down and spoken. By the BJP itself.
Absolutely not.
By the BJP itself. You just now use the same words against OBCs is what you said. Again, so the game of caste dynamics is being fallen, and you're walking into their own trap.
Anji,
One minute. I didn't speak when you were speaking. So hear me out. So you are also trapped in the same lexicon is what I'm saying. So unless you change that lexicon, things are not going to change. Now, so you are not talking about, you are also bunching up the entire Muslim vote bank. Are they looking at the entire, which Muslim vote bank? Who are these Muslims? Are they Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims, Aga Khani, Yar Pasmanda, Sayyadi, Ashrafi? Who are these people? You are not talking that language. Okay. But again with Hindus, so we are a Hindutva party, we consider everybody Hindu, whoever believes this geographical land is Hindu. But then you say OBC, Dalit, Brahmin, Jat, you also use the same lexicon. So then how are you any different from the Congress? You are speaking their lexicon. I am just making an observation. Sanket Yanagi, you put your hand up. Dr. Ranganathan coming to you after Sanket Yanagi.
Okay, allow me to respond to that.
First of all, irrespective of any community, whether it's Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jat, be that as it may, what matters in a country like India, which is progressing day by day, which is looking at new adventures, whether it's in terms of science or in terms of culture or be that anything else, when we are growing day by day, what should be our focus is only the growth and togetherness. One who is playing with that, irrespective of the caste, irrespective of the political affiliation, one who is playing with the rule of law and the order in the society, he should not be spared. Whether it is Hindu or Muslim or be it of any religion, the one who violates the law is a criminal. He should be tackled with the stringent provisions of law, irrespective of the party in power.
Do you believe that successive Siddaramaiah governments have done that, Sanket Yanagi, or have they violated this cardinal rule that a criminal is a criminal and there should be no sides taken?
Sitting at this corner, if I refer to several states, every state ruled by different political parties, the scenario is one and the same.
I agree. I'm with specific to Karnataka. I'm just I buy your point, sir, that there are other political parties. So I am
Let us
saying
be
with
clear.
Mr. Siddaramaiah, do you believe he is guilty that earlier he set off the cases of more than 400 people of the PFI and SDPI linked cases which were there, and then there was this entire lopsided opinion pushing in the case of Gauri Lankesh's death. The other thing is now what he's trying to do with his government is trying to do with these cases, Hubballi, then you have BK Hari Prasad talking about DG early, KG early. I'm just saying, have they actually walked the talk on the line that you drew? That criminals are criminals and law should be equal for all. Do you believe
Yes, let me answer your question. It is pertinent too. When I was with political party, Congress, at that moment, during the campaigning, I said, law and order, the problem dealing with the law and order, one has to maintain the Raj Dharma, irrespective of political affiliations, religion also. I maintained that stand throughout my tenure in the party. And I said, irrespective of community, we should stand and we should see to it that everyone should be respected, everyone's sentiment should be respected, everyone should live in a place which is made to live. But if it is crossing the line, be it of any religion, it may not be acceptable to the prudent man in the society.
Correct.
Society, at the end of the day, expects from everyone the harmony, peace, and togetherness. If it is affected,
Point taken. Now, I just want to ask you, Sanket Yanagi, before I go to Dr. Ranganathan, that if the political dispensation of the day decides to pardon an incident and pardon the accused or those who are involved in a flare-up, should they pardon only one side or should everybody be pardoned?
First of all, my question is, what is the public interest prevailing them which should take such a decision?
Brilliant.
No,
let's say there is a subcommittee. There is a subcommittee recommendation that's
let me answer your point. There is one point I would like to add.
Ji.
Assuming for a moment some people are protesters and they are peacefully protesting for the rights and they have got a constitutional, legitimate or legal right. They may be protesting, they may be against the government and its schemes, but they have got a right to for which they are seeking for some attention.
Exactly.
But if they enter into violent arena or violence, or disrupt the peace and order, that's not the purpose of protest.
Correct.
That will not count as a protest.
Correct.
So there must be a demarcating line between anything which we do in the guise of protest, be it of any religion, be it of any...
Totally agree, but I'm just saying if there is a subcommittee recommendation which says, okay, pardon the sides, there is a recommendation, okay, these things happened at that time, but right now I think we should let things by, water under the bridge and let pardon. And if the dispensation pardons only one side while continuing to hold on to the cases and charging the other side, then is that not brazen communal politics? Dr. Ranganathan.
First of all, Anand, I don't know what you're trying to do. Are you trying to get Sanket ji raided by Siddaramaiah ji? I think this is the maximum we can get out of him. He's been very kind, very refreshing. He said all the right things. I loved it to see a smile. On a lighter note.
He's an able lawyer. So if there is one person in this 4 windows that is on the screen who can ably defend themselves against any raid or anything, it is Sanket Yanagi. In fact, we will have to lean on his services too.
100%.
Push comes to them. Go ahead.
I hope he charges you and does it pro bono in my case, Anand. See, there is absolutely nothing wrong that Pradeep said, my good friend. Nothing wrong. Except for the fact that Congress is not in power. Pradeep, we know for a fact that Congress is pro-Muslim, anti-Hindu. I can give you hundreds of instances. But that was one of the reasons why it was booted out. And you were booted in. Now, is it or is it not a fact? All what you said is absolutely right. But is it also not a fact that for 15 years, under the BJP, state governments and central governments, you were giving 4% blanket reservations to Muslims? Is it not a fact that your central government is giving interest-free loans to Muslims to set up shops on Waqf land? Is it not a fact that UGC is funding minority Muslim institutions when they reserve quota for Muslims? Is it not a fact that you are giving Shadi Shagun schemes? Is it not a fact that you are continuing with all the wrongs that the Congress did, including controlling Hindu temples, having the Waqf Act, having the RT amendment in conjunction with 93 amendment that is forcing only the Hindu-run schools to give reservations? So my good friend, while you are absolutely right that the Congress indulged in blatant appeasement, Please prove me wrong that you are not continuing with that same appeasement.
Okay, final word. I've got to wind up after this. Yeah.
Anand, absolutely not. We're continuing with the same appeasement on the part of, and I'll just demonstrate it with one simple example. You spoke of Waqf, and write it down and record this. This will be the Prime Minister Narendra Modi led government, the BJP led government, which will ensure that the earlier Waqf Act 1954-1995 is amended, and it gets you justice, and it is no longer an appeasing act where the land of non-Muslims are also taken away by land mafia. So yes, we will act on it. On the part of state governments and governments having a control on Hindu temple, that is also matter of discourse and discussion, which will also be acted on at due process of time. But remember, Anand, there is a youth psyche which has changed. There was an earlier government which used to call 2611 as an RSS ki sajish. Today you have this government which takes forward the Sanatan pride. And in Karnataka, Anand, it is not the Bharatiya Janata Party government, it is the Congress government which knows that it can divide the Hindu communities in Lingayats and Kurbas. In fact, last time it was trying to get the Lingayats as a different caste. So yes, it's a larger challenge for the Hindu community to remain united, because it's a fact that it's easier to divide Hindus by these opposition parties and consolidate that vote bank, which is what the Prime Minister has been saying.
Well, we've got big news coming through, and I'm going to go across to that, ladies and gentlemen. It's flashing at the bottom of your screen, and we're going to wind up this debate. But requesting our guests to stay, big news that the government has now withdrawn Bharat's High Commissioner. The government has now withdrawn Bharat's High Commissioner to Canada, and it's a big development. And I'm reading the statement that's just come out. Was summoned by the Secretary this evening. He was informed that baseless targeting of the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats. Okay, he's speaking.
Been asking for. Canada has provided credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and a murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Now it is time for India to live up to what it said it would do and look into those allegations. It is in the interest of both our countries and the peoples of our countries to get to the bottom of this. Canada stands ready to cooperate with India.
It's an unprecedented diplomatic standoff that's happened. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reading the statement that's come out, and it's been put out on the MEA website. The Canadian Charge d'Affaires was summoned by Secretary East this evening. He was informed that the baseless targeting of Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats and officials in Canada was completely unacceptable. It was underlined that in an atmosphere of extremism and violence, the Trudeau government's actions endangered their safety. We have no faith in the current Canadian government's commitment to ensure their security. Therefore, the government of India has decided to withdraw the High Commissioner and other targeted diplomats and officials. It was also conveyed that India reserves the right to take further steps in response to the Trudeau government's support for extremism, violence and separatism against India. A very, very strongly worded statement. These are visuals from earlier. Siddhant should be joining us. This is big news, unprecedented. We'll try and see if we can put that statement of the MEA also on the screen that I was just reading out. Let's go across to Siddhant. Siddhant, this is big. Bharat has taken a very, very serious step. And in the past, Sanjay Kumar Verma, while speaking with us, has said that Indian officials have faced some threats and they have felt unsafe, but the Canadian authorities have cooperated. But now Bharat has said, no, we are withdrawing. We are calling back, deciding to withdraw the High Commissioner and other targeted diplomats and officials. Big step this.
Absolutely, Anand. There was constant threat to Indian diplomats, especially Indian High Commissioner Sanjay Verma, who is posted in Ottawa. In fact, on multiple occasions, at his events, at his public, engagements, the Khalistani groups used to threaten him and used to, stop his way. But this is perhaps the new level of escalation, because for the first time, any country which is a strategic partner with the other country has made the High Commissioner of that country a person of interest and the other diplomats in an ongoing investigation. It is very unprecedented, Anand, and perhaps earlier in the day, MEA did issue a very long and very strong statement perhaps exposing Mr. Trudeau, his lies, his political intentions, and etc. etc. Now, in the evening, Charge d'Affaires was summoned to Ministry of External Affairs' office. He was there inside the ministry for about 25 to 30 minutes, and right after that, MEA comes up with a statement, perhaps making it public that therefore the government of India has decided to withdraw the High Commissioner and other targeted diplomats and officials. It was also conveyed that India reserves the right to take further steps in response to the Trudeau government support for extremism, violence and separatism against India. Anand, in the past also we have heard from Mr. Jaishankar that in what kind of atmosphere Indian diplomats and staff are serving in Canada, perhaps offering consular services. But India has never done this before. They have never withdrawn their High Commissioner or other diplomats before. This is perhaps for the first time because of the fresh escalation which has been started by Justin Trudeau, Anand. This decision has been taken and perhaps the same has been conveyed to the Canadian side.
Okay, Siddhant, stay on with us. Zaka Jacob, Managing Editor, CNN News 18 with us. Zaka, big move this. Perhaps the strongest action that's been taken. And would you agree if we say that the relationship with Canada is at its all-time nadir?
Low. India has never withdrawn a Canadian High Commissioner or Indian High Commissioner in Canada ever before. So this is in that sense a very unprecedented step. And if you look at the MEA statement, it was on the basis of these baseless targeting of the Indian High Commissioner Sanjay Kumar Verma, who's been named as a person of interest. That is as good as saying that he's a suspect in a murder investigation, as well as other diplomats and officials in Canada. This was completely unacceptable to India, and therefore the Stuart Wheeler, who is the Charge d'Affaires, the highest ranking official of Canada available in Delhi at this time, was summoned to the MEA, and he was conveyed that, look, we are withdrawing our ambassador. It's a huge move, Anand, because the last time India withdrew its High Commissioner or ambassador from any country was in Pakistan. This was in 2019 after the abrogation of Article 370. Both countries had withdrawn their respective High Commissioners. Even at the height of the Devyani Khobrgade episode that was in 2013, where our diplomat had to be forcibly brought back, the High Commissioners were still very much active. The ambassadors were very much active. So recall of High Commissioners or ambassadors usually happens at a time when countries are at war with each other. So to that extent, and that too, recalling the High Commissioner of a Western country is a very unprecedented move. I think the government of India, basically the last straw was what happened in Vientiane at the ASEAN summit just a few days ago. The Prime Minister was there, and there were these reports of Justin Trudeau meeting the Prime Minister, confronting him with new facts, so on and so forth. But fact of the matter is that he made those allegations way back in September of 2023, the Prime Minister of Canada, on the floor of the Canadian Parliament. It's been over a year, and there's been no material evidence that has been provided by the Canadian authorities to substantiate the allegations made by Justin
it is
Trudeau.
very interesting because the Canadian envoy there, the CDA, Zaka, just now is on record saying that we have submitted detailed evidences to showcase the connection of the Indian High Commission with these elements. That's what they are saying. They claim we have shown detailed evidences, whereas Bharat has said that no evidence has been so far produced, and these are just baseless charges. We've been asking year on year, give us actionable intelligence, and all that's been shared by Canada has been shared with some of the other Five Eyes nations, and there's nothing that's been shown which is concrete when these allegations are made. Ambassador J.K. Tripathi is with us. Ambassador Tripathi, how would you see this big step? Zaka was saying after Pakistan, other than Pakistan, this step has not been taken with any other nation. So is this an equate?
Yes, you are correct. But this, Canadian allegation to Indian High Commissioner there in Ottawa is completely uncalled for and completely unacceptable. No High Commissioner, not at least from India, no Indian High Commissioner or ambassador can put his reputation or his country's reputation at stake by being involved in somebody's case. This is atrocious, and we had been shouting from the rooftop for last more than 1 year that okay, give us evidence, and now after 1 year they come up and say that here is the evidence, which is nothing. So this is, I think this is very good step by Indian government. And next will be that Canadian High Commissioner will also be issued marching orders.
Well, but what does this imply, Ambassador Tripathi? What does this mean?
No, it certainly implies deterioration of the bilateral relations.
And
Because you know, this is first step is to downgrade the relations by recalling the ambassador or high commissioner. So this is the first stage where Pakistan is also there. With Pakistan also, we don't have high commissioner here. They don't have our high commissioner there. Only CDA is one. Same thing is going to happen here. So this is just to show look, we will not tolerate any unfounded allegation against our people just because some terrorist in your country had been killed. And that too, terrorist is not Canadian citizen. He had Canadian permanent residence, not Canadian citizenship. And he was involved in it. It is a well-known secret that the Sikh people, extremist people, they are there in the government and they are there targeting Indian government, Indian officials. And despite this, Canadian government didn't do anything, whereas Article 5 of Canadian Constitution clearly says that Canada has to any diplomatic representative of any other country in Canada will have the immunity, and will have not only that, and any attack on any diplomat in Canada will be considered to be an attack on the sending country by Canada.
correct.
Despite this, Canadians.
Interesting you state Article 5 because that doesn't seem to be applicable to Bharat at all as far as Justin Trudeau-led government is concerned. But Ambassador Tripathi, my final question is, do you see this purely politics, internal politics and Trudeau's compulsion because he's got to bow down to the NDP and some of these elements, secessionist elements who have now embedded themselves in Canadian politics, or is there more to it? Are there other nations among the Five Eyes who are involved, who are encouraging Canada and Trudeau to do this?
I do think other nations are encouraging other nations of Five Eyes, that is New Zealand, Australia, US and UK. Besides Canada, I don't think they are doing this, but Canada is concocting stories without giving any concrete evidences. And you are right, absolutely, you hit the point when you said that because he is ruling, Trudeau has lost his majority and he wants to cling to power, he wants to cling to the support of this new Democratic Party of Sikh separation. And that's why he is dancing at the tune of those people. And certainly he will not only he will pay in elections, but the Canadian population will have to bear the brunt of it.
Right. Okay. Ambassador Tripathi, thank you for speaking with us. Thank you for speaking with us. Zaka Jacob still with us. Zaka, what does this imply? Anand Ranganathan also with us. Zaka, this means that till either Trudeau goes and things get back to normal if there's a new government there, or things go from bad to worse now?
In any case, the current ambassador, the High Commissioner, will not be able to go back to Canada. India has decided to recall him. Whether or not they send someone else in his place, again, that is India's call. I highly doubt if they will send another ambassador as a replacement for Sanjay Kumar Verma anytime in the near future. I think India will play the waiting game, which is to allow elections to happen next year. In any case, Trudeau's party is trailing the Conservatives by as much as 20 percentage points. So there's no chance that at the stage that the current polls are, that Mr. Trudeau's party, the Liberal Party, will be in any position to form the next government. Also, this thing about, appeasing the NDP and a certain sort of extremist segment of the vote bank there in Canada. I think Justin Trudeau has pretty much made this political calculation for going all in, trying to attract that Khalistani vote bank. And clearly, he's doing that at the cost of a very significant bilateral relationship, and that's what the earlier statement from the MEA also pointed to, that this is completely vote bank politics. It's completely uncalled for. that an issue or a relationship of huge foreign consequence to a country like Canada is being literally thrown to the dogs because Mr. Trudeau is following this sort of scorched earth politics by appealing to a very extremist segment within the Sikh vote bank there in Canada. And, you know, frankly, I don't even think that will help save his government or help his party win the election next year.
Right. Zaka, thank you. Thank you for your inputs. We got Sushant Sareen and Anand Ranganathan with us. We also have inputs, courtesy our senior editor security, Manoj Kumar Gupta, with top intel sources. This is their estimation. They are saying that Trudeau is under severe political compulsions, naming Sanjay Kumar Verma as part of a conspiracy to please this entire secessionist lot and the Khalistani lot, and that his government could fall any day, and due to political compulsions they are risking diplomatic relationships with Bharat. Sushant Sareen, your thought?
Yeah, I think I would agree with this particular assessment that your investigations editor has brought out, because quite clearly Trudeau is facing a lot of pressure, and he has gifted, because look, Sanjay Kumar Verma and a couple of other Indian officials were being openly targeted by the toilet cleaners, aka Khalistanis. And these are people, and of course, Trudeau is in love with toilet cleaners, so he's decided to, give them a veto on relations with India. But the moment you start naming, and the threats were always there against these diplomats. But now, when the Canadian government starts naming these people, I don't think the Indian government was left with any choice but to withdraw the ambassador, simply because he cannot function out there anymore. Once you openly, publicly declare that a particular diplomat is a person of interest, there's no way that can function. Now, the question, however, is, which is, I think, has been left ambiguous by the Ministry of External Affairs. They've been pretty categorical on many things, including calling the Canadian government of Trudeau a regime, which diplomatic parlance means that you're questioning the very basis of that particular government. But having said that, I think it's very clear that it's not very clear whether we are actually downgrading relations with Canada. Is it temporary? Much more permanent. Are we going to allow their High Commissioner to come out here? Are there any other punitive or coercive steps that India is likely to take? Whether it's on visas, whether it's on trade, whether it's on a range of other issues. There are a lot of interactions between India and Canada, along with some of the other Western countries, on very serious and very critical strategic issues. Are we going to break away from those and not include Canada in those? Because look, the charges which the Ministry of External Affairs statement has made are very serious.
Very serious, yes.
Virtually accused Trudeau of being hand in glove with terrorists. And hand in glove with separatists. Now, I don't think, and it's in some ways, we normally never do this. Even when in the worst of times, we have not taken pot shots against an individual, for example, in Pakistan.
Correct.
We will comment on the Pakistan army, Pakistan government, Pakistan jihad factory, all of that. But we don't make personal remarks. Out here, for example, today's statement has made it very personal.
Yes.
And I think it's only going to get worse as we move forward, because Trudeau is on his last legs. Those are wobbly legs anyways. And I'm not so sure whether, whether this relationship then survives after Trudeau, because what will the next Canadian government do? Will they apologize for what Trudeau has done? Yeah. I don't think so. So I think getting this relationship back on track is going to take some doing. But let's wait and see. But for now, I think there is more action happening in Delhi and in Ottawa than is happening in Islamabad, which is like a ghost town in which the Chinese are roaming.
But has this now become the Pakistan of the West is another question that's being asked. We got another update coming through that an Indian inquiry committee will be travelling to the US soon to discuss the Gurpatwan Panun case. And this is a US State Department release that is now saying this. But Anand Ranganathan, a Gurpatwan Panun, a US citizen, is threatening a Canadian MP in Chandra Arya. And he's doing so openly, brazenly. Canada doesn't take offense to that a sitting MP in their Canadian House of Commons is being threatened by a US citizen and is being called names, and Canadian Trudeau administration takes no cognizance or admission to that. But a wanted terrorist, a blacklisted person who was on a permanent residency, and his death in an internecine gang war becomes an issue for Trudeau to try and almost come to the level of severing diplomatic relationships with Bharat.
Indeed, Anand, and I completely agree with what Sushant ji has said. But I too congratulate the Modi government for this step, unprecedented one. I have to say this, of recalling our High Commissioner to Canada. I think this truly was acting on the last straw that Canada indulged in, slandering our ambassador and High Commissioner based on ridiculous evidence. Look, Anand, India has Ajit Doval, Canada has Sundar Pichai. This is the level of expertise and professionalism Canada possesses when it turns out their head of state is accusing us of killing a Canadian citizen based on intelligence gathered through Google searches. And now it is looking increasingly likely that it was actually the Pakistan ISI that plotted to kill Nijar, so that Trudeau would be dumb enough to believe that it was India that eliminated this Canadian citizen. And by the way, a Canadian citizen who got the citizenship decades after being in Canada, who was put on a no-fly list, something that is done for criminals and terrorists, who bombed and assassinated innocents and formulated kill lists of Indian diplomats, who wanted the breakup of India, and finally, who was kept in weekly touch by the Canadian intelligence. Ye situation thi. Honestly, I'm not surprised that the same Canada felicitates Nazi war criminals inside its parliament. And as for Justin Trudeau, the only thing lower than his credibility is his intelligence. He has single-handedly ruined Canada's relationship with India, possibly for years, if not for decades to come. And for what? For piddly little gains in Canadian electoral politics? Trudeau is the same guy who displayed his monumental ignorance when he supported anti-farm protests without realizing our farm bills were about giving farmers a choice like what Canadian farmers have. Anand, fact is, Trudeau is doing nothing to stop the funding of secessionist groups in Canada who want to foment trouble in India. Even Congress's Captain Amrinder, remember, erstwhile, and Manish Tiwari, whose own father was killed by Khalistan terrorists, were angry at Trudeau. Remember how the captain had refused to even meet Trudeau's minister Sajjan for this very reason? And now the attack on our temples, our embassies, the making of kill lists, the grisly tableau showing Khalistanis gunning down our ex-prime minister. And what does Trudeau do? Nothing except blame us for killing a terrorist.
And that too, there is no hard proof that we had any involvement. These are those gangsters who are there, and time and again we've said you are giving a free passage to gangsters who are fleeing this country. But Sushantji, you mentioned the statement. The most important part is the last paragraph. It was also conveyed that India reserves the right to take further steps in response to the Trudeau government's support for extremism, violence and separatism against India. This is perhaps the most serious statement that's been made, and a direct allegation with the Trudeau government. External Affairs Minister has said this in the past, but they have sugarcoated it. They have said it that perhaps he's falling to ill advice. Perhaps there are compulsions domestic that Mr. Trudeau should weigh. All of that has been said, but this is direct saying that you are directly working with those who are attacking our sovereignty.
Anand, actually, if you look at the press release which has been issued today, or the press statement of the Ministry of External Affairs, the entire press
release, call that up on the screen. Go ahead.
It's full of these kind of statements, and I don't think we've left anything to anyone's imagination of what we think of Trudeau and the Canadian regime, quote unquote, which he's heading.
Sushantji, please hold your thoughts. I've got Mr. Bambavli on the phone. Ambassador Bambavli, thank you very much. Your thoughts on this step taken by Bharat. Is it adequate measure, and how serious is this situation now?
No, I think the step taken by us, by Bharat, is appropriate in response to what the Canadians have done. I have very little idea about why the Canadians are pushing this so fast forward to make all sort of allegations against our High Commissioner. Is something which is unprecedented, and therefore, since we do not have any we do not know whether our people will be safe in Canada, I think it's appropriate that we should withdraw them.
But the statement itself reads, and I'm reading a portion of this, Ambassador Bambavle, it was also conveyed that India reserves the right to take further steps in response to the Trudeau government's support for extremism, violence and separatism against India. This is the last paragraph. That means, as a nation, we are now directly accusing the Trudeau government of acting against Bharat.
Yeah, but I think those facts were there in front of all of us, in front of everyone for quite some time now. So we have seen how the Trudeau government has been supporting people who have been saying all sorts of things about India's unity and sovereignty.
The CDA has said that Canada has submitted all evidences and Bharat is in denial. They have not acted and they have not done enough. That's what the CDA said when he stepped out of this meeting with the MEA. Ambassador Bambavle.
No, so I'm not aware of that since we are not part of government. We are not really sure whether there's any new evidence which has been handed over by the Canadian side. But I think that is something that the government will have to keep us all informed.
Is it true that there is an Article 5 in the Canadian Constitution which very clearly mandates the kind of treatment that must be accorded to anybody who's a representative on their soil of any other nation, and that they must, any action against them is a breach of that aspect and will be treated as an act of war against or an act against that very nation?
Well, there is an international treaty called the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, which mandates how any receiving country will handle and deal with diplomats from other countries. And I think the kind of behavior that the Canadians have been eating out is going far beyond and violating the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations.
In your own wisdom, is it purely internal politics? Is Trudeau doing this just to stay afloat and he needs the NDP, which has certain secessionist elements led by this person who's also been suspect in Jagmeet Singh?
Well, all I can say is if he is doing this only for domestic politics, then I think Canadians must really rethink whether he is fit to be the Prime Minister of their country.
Ambassador Bambavle, Gurpatwant Panun is openly threatening and challenging a sitting Canadian MP in Chandra Arya. But Canada takes no cognizance of that. So does that mean that the Five Eyes are in it too?
Well, look, we don't know who is in it and who is not in it, but I think we have to deal with what Canada is meting out to our diplomats, and that is exactly what the government has done. This step which have just been announced is to ensure the safety and security of our diplomatic personnel, because we have no confidence in the government of Canada ensuring their security.
So, final word, what happens next?
We'll have to wait and see, because, normally what happens is that if we are forced to withdraw some of our diplomats, we can always, if we think that is necessary, always ask the other side to withdraw their diplomats too.
We'll see if that happens, and that means that is further escalation and Bharat is not going to take this lying down. Ambassador Gautam Bambavle, thank you for speaking with us. Dr. Ranganathan and Sushant Sareen have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Right Stand. Compelled to take a short break. Brass Tacks with Zaka Jacob up next. Stay with us.
बहराइच में लोग काफी ज्यादा गुस्से में हैं। यहाँ पर जिले की एसपी यहाँ पर पहुंचे हैं, लेकिन लोग अपना गुस्सा यहाँ पर उनके सामने दिखा रहे हैं। और यहाँ पर देखिए, मैं आपको तस्वीरें दिखाऊं तो आप देखिए एसपी के साथ यहाँ पर जाते हुए जितने भी लोग यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं, जितने भी यहाँ पर लोग हैं, उनके लोगों के हाथों में देख सकते हैं आप डंडा है। पुलिस प्रशासन को देखते ही वो गुस्सा भड़क गया उनका। और यहाँ पर देखिए किस तरीके से जो लोग हैं वो निकल रहे हैं अपने घरों से। तो दूसरी तरफ देखिए गाँव के अंदर से लोग जो है हाथों में लाठी डंडा लिए हुए वो बाहर निकल रहे हैं। और इन लोगों की बस एक ही मांग है कि जो लोग वहां पर उपद्रवी थे, जिन लोगों ने लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन खराब किया, उन लोगों के खिलाफ सख्त से सख्त कार्रवाई की जाए। तो यहाँ पर आप यहाँ पर तस्वीरें यहाँ पर देख रहे हैं, देखिए हैवी डिप्लॉयमेंट, उत्तर प्रदेश पुलिस के जवानों की हैवी डिप्लॉयमेंट यहाँ पर। और हेवी डिप्लॉयमेंट के साथ गांव के अंदर से इस वक्त जो मृतक राम गोपाल है उनकी बॉडी यहाँ पर आ रही है और लोगों के चेहरे पर आप गुस्सा साफ साफ देख सकते हैं कि लोग किस तरीके से यहाँ पर गुस्से में है। काफी ज्यादा तादाद में कई गांवों के लोग यहाँ पर इकट्ठा हुए हैं और मृतक राम गोपाल का बॉडी जो है वो इस वक्त यहाँ पर आता हुआ इलाके के एसपी जो है वो लगातार आगे आगे यहाँ पर चल रही हैं।
देखिए आप सामने की तरफ जो एजेंसी देख सकते हैं, ये गाड़ियों से यहाँ पर जो है ये तस्वीरें जो है ये बेहद ऐसे में लगातार अधिकारी जो है अभी फिलहाल कुछ ये कह रहे हैं कि अभी स्थिति में बनी हुई है, बोलने को तैयार नहीं हो रहे हैं क्योंकि ये पूरा जो मामला है उसमें काफी तनाव हो चुका है और लगातार जो लापरवाही है।
अब भारी पुलिस फोर्स महाराजगंज कस्बे में आ गया है और पूरी फोर्स जो है वो एरिया डोमिनेशन के लिए निकल गया है। हालांकि जो आक्रोशित भीड़ थी उसने यहाँ पर जमकर अराजकता मचाई है। कई घरों में, कई दुकानों में तोड़फोड़ की गई है। कई प्रतिष्ठानों को, दुकानों को, कई वाहनों को आग के हवाले किया गया है। एक यहाँ पर एजेंसी में आग लगा दी गई है जो बाइक की बताई जा रही है। आप देख सकते हैं सामान भी बाहर निकाला गया है, फिर उसको फूंक दिया गया है। हालांकि अब यहाँ पर पुलिस प्रशासन के तमाम अफसर मौजूद हो गए हैं और इस पूरे हालात को काबू में करने की कोशिश की जा रही है। खुद एसपी की ओर से ये कहा गया है कि जहां ज़रूरत हो वहां पर उपद्रवियों को काबू करने के लिए टीयर गैस चलाया। आप देख सकते हैं एजेंसी में जो तमाम बाइकें रखी हुई थी उनको आग के हवाले किया गया है और पूरा काला धुआं इस पूरे इलाके में फैल गया है। पुलिस प्रशासन इस बेकाबू भीड़ को समय पर नहीं संभाल सका और कई दुकानों को, वाहनों को आग के हवाले किया गया है। कैमरामैन अनिल के साथ ऋषभ मणि त्रिपाठी, न्यूज़ 18, बहराइच।
Remember, there has been a communal flare-up in Bahraich in Uttar Pradesh. The situation is going completely out of hand. The youth who died in the violence that erupted after there was stone pelting and firing that was reported from the Maharajganj area of Bahraich after Durga procession, immersion procession was really being carried out from that area. That youth, the killing of that youth has led to this communal flare-up. We also do know how the body, the mortal remains of the youth was handed over to the family of the victim, and they are now, along with other people from the village, parading the body, and there is an incident of arson that has also been reported. Things are completely out of hand in that area. There has been a direction by the state chief minister for the police to increase manpower at the immersion sites and also police personnel to be deployed at the village. We have just presented a couple of ground reports from this area after these instances of violence and arson has been reported. We can see our colleagues Amit and Rishabh who are on ground along with their colleagues, and they in fact are reporting that the situation is really tense. You can see a bike agency that has been set on fire, new bikes that have been set on fire by the locals who are protesting the death of one of their kin. We are talking about Ram Gopal Mishra, who is a resident of the Rewa Mansoor village. He was shot while walking with the group for the Durga idol immersion. He was taken to a nearby hospital, but he later died during treatment. Now remember, this incident took place when a procession which was carrying an idol of goddess Durga for immersion passed through the Maharajganj Bazaar in Mansoor village, and that's when the stone pelting and firing incident really started, and in that unfortunately Ram Gopal Mishra lost his life. My colleague Rishabh Mani Tripathi is now joining us live from that very area where this flare up has been reported from. Rishabh, सबसे पहले तो आप ये जानकारी दीजिए कि आप सेफ हैं और अभी ताज़ा स्थिति क्या है उस जगह पे जहां से आगजनी की घटना हुई है।
देखिए, हाँ, मैं बिल्कुल सेफ हूँ। हालांकि मेरे जो कैमरा पर्सन हैं अनिल कुमार, उनके साथ मारपीट की गई है, उनके साथ बदसलूकी की गई है, तो हमें कुछ देर के लिए कैमरा बंद भी करना पड़ा, लेकिन हम अपना फ़र्ज़ निभाते हुए फिर मौके पर हैं। और आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पर सामने एक जो शोरूम था बाइक का, उसको आग के हवाले किया गया। रह रह कर यहाँ पर धमाके हो रहे हैं। कई बाइक जो अंदर थी उनको आग के हवाले कर दिया गया है। अभी तक यहाँ पर फायर ब्रिगेड नहीं पहुँची है, आग पर काबू नहीं हो पा रहा है। जो सबसे बड़ी इस वक्त चिंता है वो ये है कि ये आग कहीं ये जो आसपास रिहायशी इलाका है, जो घर है, उनको कब्जे में ना ले रहे। और ये जितने भी घर हैं ये एक वर्ग विशेष के हैं, उनको टारगेट किया गया है। इस शोरूम के बगल में एक डिस्पेंसरी है, उसको भी निशाना बनाया गया। आप देख सकती हैं, सुनेंगे ये बीच बीच में ये धमाके की आवाज़ आ रही है, चूँकि जो बाइक हैं उनमें ये एक्सप्लोजन हो रहा है। अब ये थोड़ी लापरवाही ज़रूर है पुलिस की ओर से कि यहाँ पर फायर ब्रिगेड होनी चाहिए थी, ताकि इस
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. There is an unprecedented standoff between India and Canada after Canada declared the Indian High Commissioner to Ottawa as a person of interest in a murder investigation that surrounded Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the Khalistani extremist who was killed in Vancouver more than a year ago. And then, of course, Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, stood up in the floor of the Parliament there in Canada and made these unprecedented allegations. It's been over a year since he made those allegations. Not a shred of evidence, documentary or otherwise, has been provided to India. India has now decided to withdraw the High Commissioner, Sanjeev Kumar Verma, who's been named as a person of interest in this case, as well as